Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to the DCW Racing Community League for 2024 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing, and we are here today to bring to a close what has been an absolutely fast, furious and frantic championship campaign with round 5 of 5 of the Community League here at the one and only Oulton Park circuit in the United Kingdom. However, for our drivers to take on this circuit, they're not going to be taking on the traditional international layout of the classic British circuit. If anything, we're taking the ultimate classic layout of the circuit, predominantly known of course for its featuring on many a motorsporting calendar, including the legendary British Touring Car Championship in its Super Touring era in the 90s, and that is our drivers will be taking on the Foster's layout. Spanning the best part of 1.66 miles, this variant of the Little Budworth circuit in Cheshire is a circuit variant whereby it's all about track position from the outset. While a whole multitude of corners but a very narrow road racing surface, overtakes comes at a premium here at the Little Budworth circuit, and therefore it's all going to be about qualifying well and then holding on to position by being bold on the brakes and making sure that your rival can't force the way up the inside to make it too wide. But which of our drivers today will be able to master the art of being fast in qualifying and holding on to places in the races, given the fact we've got plenty of racing on the schedule, and most importantly, who will be our champion come the end of it all to take away the DCW Racing Trophy and take that into 2025 and then need to defend the title in a year's time. Well, for all that and more, we're live from circuit side here today, and we welcome you all to this live broadcast brought to you on two media platforms for your viewing pleasure. You could be tuning in right now via YouTube at youtube.com and search for TX141TX or Paul Walsh, and welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via YouTube. Alternatively, you could be tuning in via Twitch at twitch.tv/TX141, and welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via Twitch. And who is your commentator, I hear you ask? Well, you might be wondering who is Paul Walsh or who is TX141. Well, allow me to answer all those questions in one, because I'm the host and commentator for this round. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And I'll be in the commentary booth bringing you all the racing action as it unfolds today. And well, speaking of today, let's take you through our scheduled times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinate Time, UTC. And as been seen just under what is 30 minutes time, we have a qualifying session, rather short and sweet, 10 minutes in duration, if that, and that'll be at 9 o'clock this evening, after which we'll be heading to the first of our two races, both 20-minute races, albeit with peculiarities around them. The first race following straight on from qualifying at 9:10 this evening, and after that we'll take a brief breather before returning for the race in action, and what is expected to be approximately 25 to 10, where we'll bring the final checker flag down, and we will be revealing the champion out of this fifth round. But as we get set and ready to go racing today, let's give you an update on the calendar so far, and what is lying in wait for this season finale. Because as we can see, this has been going on in terms of the Community League for a good number of months. It started all the way back on the 13th of October at the Knockhill Racing Circuit in Scotland, and the whole theme for the purposes of this Community League for this season, its maiden season, has been British circuits with Cup style racing throughout, where drivers essentially had one make of car, alternatively they've been focused on one class of car throughout, and on the 13th of October it all began with the SCCA Spec Racer Ford at Knockhill in Scotland, and from Scotland the Brave on the 3rd of November to kill off the penultimate month of this year, our drivers made the way to Cadwell Park in the Mazda MX-5 Cup machine. And then at the midpoint they made the way to Donington Park and did duelling on the national layout of the circuit on the 10th of November with GT4 class machinery, the only round where our drivers have been able to pick their car rather than have to be forced to pick one particular car. And then last time out on the 24th of November, our drivers made the way all the way down to the county of Kent at the bottom end of England for the one and only Brands Hatch Indy Circuit to utilise the Porsche 992 GT3 Cup Car, and was absolutely elbows out there at the Brands Hatch Indy Circuit. And there's going to be plenty more elbows out today, this fine 8th of December at the Oulton Park Foster's course, and our drivers will be taken to it in the Toyota GR86 Cup Car. That's right, the Gazoo racing machine made for racing on the North American continent as of what was 2022 when it was conceived, and starting off in its maiden real-life racing series in 2023, while drivers are going to be absolutely roaring around with the roar of 2.4 litre boxer machinery, 4 cylinders, produced jointly between Toyota and Subaru. As we head into this round for our season finale, let's give you an update on the championship stands after 4 rounds. And as we can see, out of our 15 drivers who competed so far, there's plenty more at DCW Racing, but these are the 15 who've made the way to the grid for at least one round so far. Mikey Pollard leads the way on 82 points, with only one win to his name in terms of the wins that matter, but the best overall average set of finishing positions there, always typically finishing towards the top three, and an absolutely phenomenal set of performances, no doubt about it, from Mikey Pollard. And could it be straightforward today, and could he bring it on home today, in the fact he doesn't need to score many points? Well, there's going to be many a driver trying to stop him on his quest to become the 2024 champion, including Ash Hill, who sits in P2 on 64 points, and whilst he sits 18 points behind the leader, anything can happen, to be fair, as we'll explain very shortly as to why it's a peculiar point scoring system. Because in P3, just behind him by 3 points, is Paul Crawford of Motorsport UK fame, particularly in the Motorsport UK esports division, and we're very happy to see Crawford absolutely doing dueling with Hill, and also Richard Simnor, who's in P4 currently on 60 points, and those three, well, they're going to have to try and stop stepping on each other's toes if they want to try and bring Pollard into the mix. Outside of the top four, you've got Andy Jones in P5 on 54 points, 4 ahead of Richard Yip, and then outside of the top six, James Foster sits a third point behind, ahead of Carl McGurk, with Matty Wild and Alistair Pollock completing your top 10. Josh Boots sits P11 ahead of Mike Pearce, Mark Collicott, Patrick Falconer and Gavin Petty completing the championship standings. But coming on to our circuit for today, well, as we mentioned earlier, it is the Foster's Loud of the Oulton Park circuit, located near the village of Little Budworth in the county of Cheshire in England, the United Kingdom. Well, the circuit map provided us by iRacing.com, and thank you very much to iRacing for their fantastic simulator and the track maps that come within it. Well, it's a circuit map that doesn't quite do the circuit justice, because yes, a two-dimensional image will tell you that it does have the best part of what is 10 corners, starting with Old Hall Corner at turn 1 and finishing with the Deer Leap Kink at turn number 10. However, this circuit is plentiful in terms of its elevation changes as well, and some very severe gradients, including the run coming out of what is turn 2 at Denton's into Cascades at turn number 3, and that's what a two-dimensional image doesn't show you, is just how massive those elevation changes are and how they can catch drivers out very easily. And as the drivers roar the way around here, they'll find not only elevation changes will come thick and fast, but also bumps and depressions in the road, including in the apexes, such as at Old Hall Corner at turn number 1, and also into Lodge Corner in the final corner, where it is cambered on the apex, but it's off camber and exit, and they'll need to conquer that, and plenty more should they wish to come away strong. And we'll ride on board with Salvo drivers over the course of qualifying to give you an idea of what it's like to put together a lap of the Foster circuit. And coming on to our rules for today, well, let's explain. Our drivers are running a fixed setup, and that is a setup which applies to every driver. They're not allowed to change it. I think the only thing they're allowed to tweak on the car is the brake bias, if anything. But otherwise, it's all been homologated, and therefore it's all about who can master utilising the fixed setup machinery. Now, as for our races, they will begin via a standing start, where a driver may be in the course of a race distance receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 20 or more instant points. Our drivers will have 3 fast repairs available in each and every race, so therefore they do get a few bumps and scrapes, and if a bumper falls off or two, well, they've got the opportunity to repair the car and get back into the mix. The grid for the races shall be set as follows. The grid for race 1 shall be set based on the results of qualifying. The grid for race 2 shall be set based on the full reversal of the results from race number 1. So what does that mean in layman's terms for race number 2? Well, we take the finishing order of race number 1 and we flip it upside down, and that's exactly how our drivers will start for race number 2. So whoever finished last in race 1, they start on pole for the purposes of race 2, and meanwhile the winner of race 1, you guessed it, they start at the very back of the grid, and that is going to be an absolute challenge for them, because you can see there on the final bullet point with regards to our races, drivers only score points for their finishing position in race number 2. So therefore, you need to get the best possible result in race number 2. There's bragging rights up for grabs in qualifying in race 1, but there's no points available. But the thing is, given you've got the qualifying session, plus you've also got race number 1 to contend with, it is very challenging to be able to guarantee yourself a good starting position for race number 2, and therefore you really do have to try and be consistent and average things out over the course of the evening in order to pick up those precious points. And add to it as well the fact we do have a very unique modifier, which is we have a virtual safety car in effect. Over the course of this season, each driver has had a single VSC, as it's abbreviated to, where they can call for the VSC, and it may be made in any given race. But once they've used it, that's it. They're not allowed to use it ever again over the course of the season. And the majority of the drivers have used their VSC calls, but we do have a couple of drivers here today, including Matty Wild and also James Foster, who have yet to use it. But what exactly happens when they do make the VSC call? Well, firstly, it neutralises the racing, so drivers are not permitted to overtake or do battle anymore, and they must drive at a prescribed speed. And all drivers over the course of the VSC are required to catch up to the lead pack, after which the race leader can control the race restart. So why is this an interesting conundrum? Well, it means if you as a driver end up in a major shunt at the start of race number 2 that puts you all the way to the back of the grid, well, you can always call the VSC in order to neutralise the racing and give yourself the opportunity to use that fast repair to get your car into the pits, get it repaired and get back out there. Alternatively, what you may choose to do with the VSC if you're leading up front is potentially bleed off some race time, particularly if you're under a lot of pressure in the early stage of the race and your rivals are really gunning for that victory and trying to take it off you. You could call the VSC in order to neutralise the racing and potentially gain a bit of a mental upper hand, if you will, and build some more race momentum later on in the race, because it doesn't extend the race duration. The race is only 20 minutes in length. So therefore, we've got to keep our eyes out for that and plenty more. But the most important thing, of course, we've got to keep our eyes out for is the racing, and that's enough rules and regulation, everything in between. We're all here for the racing, and as we make our way back to circuit side, well, we look to the PDR machine there of Gavin Petty as he roars his way on around, and Petty looking good as he heads all the way up towards what is there the last couple of corners of this lap. And as he does so, well, right now I can imagine for Petty, indeed many of our drivers, they'll all be eager just to simply get their heads down and do their utmost here in order to get things right from the outset as he roars his way down in towards the final corner. But as he comes on through and out of it, well, we'll see him heading towards the timeline very shortly, and we've still got 5 minutes to go in what is this final practice session, if you will. And well, our drivers will have put some practice in earlier in the week. Well, some of them may have, some may have not, and of course the pressure is going to be on this man as he gets ready to emerge on the trees. It's Mikey Pollard in the number 73, a very colourful car there, and well, I thought I might have been having a bit of a psychedelic trip, to be fair, looking at the car. Indeed, if you are a Beatles era or something along those lines, you may have seen those colours more than once, but we won't go any further there. Let's keep this PG-13 as he heads in towards turn number 1. Well, Pollard right now as he runs very wide, exploring the track limits there as much as possible, and of course piloting the Toyota GR86 Cup machine. Now, this car has approximately 230 horsepower. It's not a far cry from the GR86 machine that was released by Toyota in what was 2022, and the car's still on sale up to this year, after which it has to stop being sold, particularly on the European mainland, due to EU rules and regulations with regards to emissions and the car not being compliant, albeit I think it still could be sold in the United States of America, which was its original target audience, at least the Cup car was, and well, it is part of the what is the GT World Challenge North American package, in the fact as well the support series there, the Gazoo Racing Toyota GR86 Cup, and well, it's come to the end of its second year. It's been a highly successful series, and well, for the price of £250,000, you can be on the grid in one of these with full team and customer support for the entirety of a season. All homologated cars, and therefore it's all about what you as a driver can do and getting the setup right in the car. And as he makes his way up towards the time zone there, Mikey Pollard really has been the man over the course of the multitude of cars we've had in the course of this community league to be able to find the best possible time out there. But can he find a way to master this machine today? Because it is a free car on iRacing as a simulator. It's one of the entry cars, if you will. And well, keeping in that mind, what it does mean is that therefore, with the car being readily available to everybody who is an iRacer and therefore a sim racer, is a perfect starting point if you're looking for a front engine rear-wheel drive machine, and well, a very loose rear end at times if you get the power down aggressively. And Richard Yip there demonstrating just what you can do coming through turn 1 and into 2 and 3 as he comes on down. But of course, where the international layout would see our drivers make the way all the way past Lakeside by carrying through the long left-hander, instead going through at the right-hander there, turn 4 at Foster's, and cutting back on himself before coming into Knickerbrook corner, albeit minus the chicane, and up the hill he goes there in at the number 65. But as time continues to trickle away in this warm-up session, we also do see him, the Hello Kitty machine, that is Alistair Pollock, and well, the number 21 driver there, typically racing for the blue outfit of DCW Racing. And all of the drivers you do see here are DCW Racing members of varying degrees of what is veterancy, if you will, where a number of drivers race on a more casual basis for DCW Racing, whereas some are out there representing the team week in, week out. But it's great to see so many different names and faces, and many of you may have seen in a number of sim racing series, whether it be hosted by UK Sim Racing or alternative other organisations, as Alistair Pollock gives us a demonstration of how not to come down into turn number 3 there, but also demonstrates the very strong roll cage of the Hello Kitty number 21 machine, as that car will be towed to the pits very shortly, I suspect. Here we look to Paul Crawford, the number 25 driver, who on the side of the car there, and I do snigger slightly in the commentary booth, says birds aren't real, and I do believe that is in reference to what was a bit of a social media phenomenon a few months ago, I want to say, or perhaps a few years ago. I must admit, it has been some time since I've seen that classic conspiracy theory regarding birds are not being real. But he'll be hoping to take flight today, and with that and his fancies, potentially steal away at least the runner-up spot in the championship, if not take it away completely for what is our championship leader of Pollard. But it's easier to say one thing in practice practice. It's another thing to actually apply it, or I should say in theory, and apply it to practice. But Crawford will know all about that in terms of absolutely delivering those results, and that's why he is one of your 4 championship contenders going into this season finale. And do keep in mind, for the win in race number 2, it's 25 points. So therefore, arguably on paper, all Pollard needs to do, given the points up for grabs at every finishing position, and there are 15 drivers here today, all what is Pollard would need to do is simply finish the race, and to guarantee what would be that championship crown, he would need to finish inside the top 10 if my mathematics is correct. But if he finishes outside of it, then the door would open. But for the likes of Crawford, they do need a win in order to be able to take that championship crown away, and that is why it's going to be a very difficult round, and while they'll want to avoid the pinch of potential fighting with each other until towards the very end of the race. But as we look to Richard Simnor making his way over the crest there, heading up towards Water Tower and coming into the right-hander shortly into Druid's Bend, the double right apex, and roaring his way on through then the Hatsune Miku machine. And we'll definitely reveal him right now. They do have a little bit of Vocaloid and anime knowledge alongside some of the other very interesting unique liveries you do see here, and the Hatsune Miku livery popularised by what was the Intercontinental GT World Challenge Championship Series, whereby it was first debuted in a Mercedes AMG, if my memory serves me correctly, in 2020, and that was by a team at Suzuka, unless I'm mistaken. And well, Japan being, of course, what is the birthplace, if you will, of many a Vocaloid and also an anime series or manga series, and that's why it's the attention of many a racing team in Japan. But without further ado, we come back to the United Kingdom in terms of our thoughts, and therefore apply them towards the qualifying session, ladies and gentlemen, because here we go. 10 minutes of qualifying. Who will be on pole by the end of it? Well, it's time to find out. However, as we go into qualifying, let's tell you a little bit about this qualifying session and why those 10 minutes may not last the full duration. Our drivers are making their way out the pit lane at the moment, and as they do, they'll be onto their warm-up lap or their out lap. As soon as they complete that, they have 2 qualifying laps available to them. So therefore, our drivers do not have the full extent of the 10-minute session. And given the lap times around here are well underneath 1.5 minutes, well, you do the mathematics. If they had the full extent of the 10 minutes of the session, they would have the best part of what is 4 to 6 qualifying laps available to them. But they don't. They have only 2 after the out lap. So therefore, a number of drivers may opt to go back to the pits before they cross the timeline to complete what would be, their out lap. But beyond that, they need to get those laps in, and if you absolutely have an abysmal first flying lap, then your second lap is going to be affected, and you can't tow to the pits at that point, because if you do, you will lose your remaining qualifying lap. So it is going to be a bit of a pressure cooker situation with regards to this qualifying session, but who will be the one to put it on pole? Could it be the Castrol liveried machine of Ash Hill here? And Ash, of course, our second place driver in the championship going into this round, the man who is going to be chasing down Pollard as far as he possibly can, as he roars his way out of what is there, Druid's Corner, and heading all the way down towards turn number 9, coming into the proximity of what is Lodge Corner. He's not got too far to go, and Lodge Corner being named after that infamous lodge on the estate which Oulton Park is located on, and the lodge just being off to the distant outside of the corner. But as Ash Hill makes his way across the timeline, he'll go onto his first line lap, as will just behind him here Matty Wild coming into the final corner. And that's Sesame Street on the side, I do believe there. Some very unique liveries of the cars, no doubt about it, as we see somebody getting very sideways there behind Matty, and I believe that was Ethan Marone who going sideways there. Well, definitely showing his Tokyo Drift capabilities in the number 12 as he heads onto a flying lap, and we jump on board here with Marone as he comes on through the opening corner. Now roaring his way through turn number 1, one of the trickiest course on the circuit, Old Hall, and now in towards Denton's. He'll go blind right-hander into the downhill drop here for what is Cascade. Dabbing the brakes there to settle the car slightly and bring the weight forward, then hard on the anchors into Foster's at turn number 4, taking plenty of apex cover, putting the car on 2 wheels, my goodness, as he now makes his way up into turn number 5, into Knickerbrook Corner, and roaring his way through completely flat out, and he'll be flat out all the way through Clay Hill at turn number 6, and then heading towards Water Tower Corner at turn number 7. The Water Tower not being visible, but you can see the tree where the water tower would be. And as he comes to your left hand down to Druids, very hard to get this right, drops a gear, takes plenty of the first apex curve, and that is going to unsettle the car, but he keeps it pointed in the right direction as he heads onwards now towards what will be turn number 9 at Lodge Corner under the Warwick Bridge, and as he comes hard onto the brakes, coming all the way down to second gear, plenty of apex to rotate the car back on the throttle immediately, and what a lovely enter lap as he charges through lead from Marone there. And what's it going to be, as he is one of the last drivers out there in terms of on that open lap, and that is going to put him into P6. It's a 106.881, and he'll have 1 one more lap at his fingertips now if he wants to get this right. And as he roars his way down towards turn number 2, we have Richard Yip going into pole position. That's provisional pole for the number 65 driver. And as he comes out of the right-hander, it's going to be a 106.070. I suspect we'll see a 105 before the session is done, given the fact that drivers will all be burning the fuel out of the cars as they go on these fixed loads. And as he comes in towards turn number 4, what's it going to be here from the Coca-Cola machine? And, well, I can see Santa on the side of the car there, and Santa and Coca-Cola being entwined when it comes to media and advertising all the way back since the 90s, as far as I can remember, when I used to be a toddler. But as he comes out of the left-hander there, and I show my age, roaring his way up towards turn number 8 he goes. We're starting to see some faster laps, and Andy Jones is the first to put a 105 on the board, a 105.974, as he takes plenty of curb, but he sends it sideways there. And, well, goodness me, going completely wrong in the Star Wars Episode 2 liveried machine. And, well, that's Attack of the Curbs, not Attack of the Clones for certain. And, well, as he makes his way on through the last couple of quarters here, coming back to Richard Yip as he heads up towards the timing line. What's it going to be? Can he improve from provisional P2? Can he take back pole position right at the end here in his final flying lap? It's not enough. He does improve to a 106.042, but it's only 300ths faster. Meanwhile, Paul Crawford snakes his way out to P9 on the 106.761, and it's looking as though for many a driver those improvements are not forthcoming. And, well, with that in mind, I believe, unless our drivers are allowed to get other laps in, I believe that is qualifying complete, essentially, because it does mean those last laps are in, although Gavin Petty crossed the line, and that is a 105.954, and, well, an absolutely incredible lap there, and that puts him on at provisional pole now. And I think there are some laps still being finished by drivers, so I'm being made to mark my words as he comes on down. Jones is into the pit lane, Marone is into the pit, so Petty leaving it to last to get the lap in. And, well, can you blame him there? A lovely lap from Petty, and can anybody respond here as Hill goes P4, doesn't quite improve into the 105s, gets very close to Falconer, moves up to P12, Foster stays P14, and Mark Collicott, well, he's left it all to the very end here. And, well, at this point, I think his channel is in a Tony the Tiger, as I can see on the car, that being in reference to, I want to say Shreddies, but that's not right at all. That's the rival brand of cereal. I believe it's, oh goodness me, I can't remember now. But what I can tell you, as he comes down towards turn number 3, Frosties, there we go. Almost having a bit of brain freeze in my mind. And as he makes his way through turn number 4, Collicott leaving this literally to the last possible moment. Well, what this does for him, it means he's on the circuit that's got the most rubber laid down, and it has got a little bit more track temperature compared to how it started the session. But the one downside of this approach is he won't have the toe of any driver in front of him that he could potentially try to sneakily siphon as he makes his way on around. Albeit not all drivers like to qualify with slipstream, and here at Oulton Park on the Foster's layout, do you really want a tow? Well, the only time you'd want the slipstream is on the run here, for example, coming out of Druids up towards Lodge Corner, albeit it's a short run, and also the run out of Lodge up towards Old Hall Corner at turn number 1. But beyond that, you don't really want the slipstream, because if anything, it unsettles the downforce on the car, and whilst these cars don't have too much aerodynamics to them, they do have that notable rear wing and also a little bit of aerodynamic refinement at the front, so they can be a bit vulnerable to the dirty air of another car. But normally you want to be in clear air with these machines, because that's where you can absolutely toss them at each and every corner. But Mark Collicott deciding, you know what, I'm going to do it by myself. I'm going to get this done. And as we jump on board here with Collicott as he roars his way down in towards turn number 3, coming on through in 4th gear, and he'll be holding the anchor shortly into Foster's corner, takes plenty of apex curve, a little bit too much, and you can see there's a fine line between hitting that curve right and getting it wrong, and Collicott taking a bit too much, and as a result having to put corrective steering in order to avoid going onto the grass as one of his rivals did earlier. But still, as he makes his way up towards Watertower Corner into left-hander, he'll go as we continue to ride on board, and now into Druids Bend, and here it's all about carrying all the speed you possibly can as he makes his way all the way round. And as he does so, and our dashboard sneaks its way away and then re-materialises from the ether. Well, Collicott heading it up towards the timeline here, hard on the brakes, he's about to go. What can he do this time around? Well, as he comes through the right-hander here with nobody else out on circuit, for Collicott it looks as though it's going to be a lap where he can improve, but how high is he going to improve to as he heads across that timeline? Well, for Collicott in the end, he goes P15, he doesn't find the time out there, and well, a difficult end to the qualifying session for Mark Collicott, and that is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. And in the end, it is going to be Gavin Petty who takes pole position for our first of our 2 races today. And keep in mind, of course, race number 1 doesn't give you any points, and you don't get any bonus points for being on pole, but Petty there putting down a statement, which is he feels as though he is the fastest man out there and will want to get the job done. And well, if he he can lead the way away to the end of race 1. He'll start at the back of the grid for race number 2, but I don't think he'll mind that given the confidence he's brought to the table, as we see there Ethan Marone making his way briefly out the pit lane and then staying stationary, so making his way back into his box. And I think a couple of drivers all right now just getting themselves set. I think Marone might be doing a little bit of standing start practice from his pit box, but it's not quite the same surface as the tarmac he'll start on. And also keep in mind that starting on the front row here at Oulton Park actually means you start on a slight incline, which will make it challenging. But as we do say hello to Alan Loof in the Twitch chat, who's saying just wipe out Mikey Pollard and all is good. And we do say hello to Solost1450 there in the YouTube chat, and I hope you're doing well with Solost. I believe that might be Carl McGurk, in fact, who is currently sat in the pit lane. Correct me if I'm wrong, Solost, but my memory I think is spot on here today, given the fact it's been a few months since we've last spoke. But as we see Andy Jones parts there, and I must admit the liveries on display from All Drives absolutely superb. I do love the inventiveness and also a number of the references there, and we'll try and keep those references coming all the way through. But as our drivers now just wait for this qualifying session to tickle over into what is the first race of the day, and it will let us know, ladies and gentlemen, who you're cheering on today, as we do there just see what is our flag man, Barney Flag, just staying there with the green flag, albeit he's got nothing to wave a flag at the moment. And indeed, I think all the drivers are just waiting for the opportunity to go racing, but they're not too far away, as we do look to Sean McArdle, as he does sit in the pit lane there, and well, he'll know it's not a long run all the way down towards turn number 1, and starting P9 right in the thick of it. There could be some elbows out before we do go all the way through at that first lap, and he'll be mindful to try and pick up some places, but avoid getting caught up in the carnage should there be any. And remember that some of our drivers do have those virtual safety cars they can deploy in order to rebunch the field up, so the racing could get underway quite quickly, only to then end up under the safety car. Well, for all that and more, we're going to find out what's going to happen, because it is time, ladies and gentlemen, to head to the grid for our first of 2 races for today. So the drivers make their way onto the grid. This is how they'll line up. It is Gavin Petty who takes pole position ahead of Andy Jones, who lines up P2 alongside. In the end between the two of them, it was only what was 200s. Richard Yip starts P3 ahead of Ash Hill, with Ethan Marone starting P5 ahead of Richard Simnor. Row number 4 goes to Carl McGurk and Matty Wild, with the top 10 being completed by Sean McArdle and Paul Crawford. Then we have Bester SP11, Alistair Pollock ahead of Patrick Falconer. And then on your final full row of the grid, it's Mikey Pollard, your championship leader, and James Foster, and then Mark Collicott completes your 15 drivers on the grid here today at the Oulton Park circuit. Most are in position already. We're just waiting for the last 1 or 2 to take their spots on the grid, but when they do in the first R2 races, what is referred to as the heat race, well, the heat is definitely going to be on. There's going to be the fire burning in the hearts of many of our drivers, but who's going to be the one to run away to victory? Could it be Petty? Could it be Jones? Or could it be Yip or Hill? Well, here we go, ladies and gents. For the first time today, the lights are going on, and without further ado, it's 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out, and away we go here at Oulton Park, because it's a slow start for many. And, well, as everyone crawls away, a very slow start there for your name is Andy Jones. Richard Yip gets into the lead there. Ash Hill making his way up the inside already, and Petty under pressure as they come through turn number 1. A couple of cars running slightly wide. That's cold tyres and awareness of others. But as they make the way on down, oh, goodness me, and Jones makes his way past. A bit of carnage, as that's Mikey Pollard who's turned to the barrier there, with Mark Collicott and Patrick Falconer also being involved. And Patrick Falconer, I think there was a collapsed suspension on the front of the car, but meanwhile, whilst all that's going on, we'll get a replay of that when we can. And we can see Ethan Marone here now starting to get stuck in, taking on what was there Carl McQuirk for P4, and gets the place as they make the way up the rise. Meanwhile, behind it's too wide. Richard Simnor and McQuirk going side by side here into Watertower. Well, someone's going to have to back out eventually. If not, coming into Druids Bend, and in the end it will be the Hatsune Miku machine of Richard Simnor that sings its way around the outside, and McQuirk has not quite used his Shell V-Power machine quite the way he'd want it to, as Simnor showing from left to right there, a little bit of bob and a weave, but I think we are back under what is a virtual safety car already, as the racing has been neutralised, ladies and gentlemen. And well, with that in mind, we do now have to head to what is a prescribed speed, which our race leader will do as they make the way across the timeline, and it will be at Richard Yip, who right now, I think, as he makes his way on through, are we under the safety car or not? That's the big question. I think we may not be. I think, in fact, because Yip is running off into the distance, I think it's the situation whereby Marone might be backing the field up. Although I say that, the whole field is tucking in behind him, so I think we are under the safety car, and perhaps the top 3 have not got the message as of yet, as Marone backing the whole field up here as he makes his way on down. And meanwhile, the top 3 have now come to a halt. I think the message has finally got through to the number 65 driver that we are under the virtual safety car conditions, where it's a bit of pandemonium here as the field tries to catch up. But after one lap, a very frantic and chaotic lap, Richard Yip is your leader ahead of Gavin Petty, who started pole position but lost out and had to regain the places early on. Ash Hill is P3, that's your top three, and then the rest of the field is catching up. Ethan Marone is P4, having gained a place at the start. Richard Simnor is P5 ahead of Carl McGirt P6, Sean McArdle P7, then we have Matty Wild P8 ahead of James Foster, and Alistair Pollock completes your top 10. Paul Crawford is down to P11, having started at the bottom end of the top 10. We've dropped one place. Andy Jones was the biggest casualty at the start with a very slow launch off the line. In fact, practically stayed static and in the end got himself going, albeit after doing swamps. He's dropped 10 places down to B12. Mikey Pollard still P13 after that major shunt at the start. And there's Patrick Fowler to P14 and Mark Collicott's in the pit lane, P15 currently, as we do take a look back to what exactly happened at the race start. We're riding on board here with what was Andy Jones's perspective, and we'll hear what happened. And well, just not deciding to shift the gears, and when he did, shifted all the way up to third gear and then dropping it back to first. That explains why Jones took a while to get underway. Now, was this a little bit of a tactic to just fall himself back and focus on race number 2? Well, that's one big question, but then we'll see the instant right in front here, as I believe, oh goodness me, and losing it, there was the Frosties machine. And Mikey Pollard just decides to come right across Jones. I think he might have been aided there, and we can try and find out what happened to Pollard at the race start. And here's the exterior cameras. We look back once again at what happened, and well, Pollard also taking it very gently off the line there, knowing that he doesn't need to risk anything in race 1 because it's race 2 that matters the most. But as they got underway and heading up towards the corner, well, it was 4-5 wide at the back of the field, and Pollard just watching on at a distance. But as they came into the corner, I suspect here he's going to try and look for a potential move. Oh goodness me, in fact, snapping from one side to the other, and it was the Frosties machine of Mark Collicott that went wayward and tapped Pollard towards the barrier. And well, that explains the story as we return to your live pictures, ladies and gentlemen. And as we do, well, the field right now still under virtual safety car conditions, and it is Richard Yip who is bunching the field up, but I think he has bunched them all up now, and we can go racing once again. And in fact, we just come back in time as they have gone green flag racing here into what is lap number 3, as it's 2 by 2 by 2 as they come down through Cascades and in towards Foster's corner. And Jones here now started to put on the fight as he roars his way in towards Knickerbrook corner, and behind Pollock and Crawford fighting side by side, and Crawford right now on the outside, finding that being on the outside for Knickerbrook corner is not the best place to be, as that is going to be what is Pollock there making his way through, and Mikey Pollard's going to try and do the same as well as they roar their way over the rise in towards Water Tower they go. Crawford on the outside here, and Pollard absolutely trying to poke his nose into perhaps where Crawford will feel as though it doesn't belong, as they head over the crest down under the Warwick Bridge and now in towards the final corner. This time they go. The final major corner that is just in front. You see Crawford there still trying to come back at Pollock, but it's not going to work out at the moment, and therefore as they come across the timeline, we've still got 15 minutes of racing to go. It's a long journey here in this first race of the day, and well, the field now definitely under full pace, and all attack from lights out to checker flag it will be, albeit unless we get another virtual safety car, of course. But I think some drivers are still keeping that ace up their sleeve should they have it available, but Yip still leading as they make the way on down, pulling away from Petty. And Petty, since the restart, if anything, just has not been able to get himself settled down too well, as we can see there Ash Hill in P3 right now under growing pressure from Simnor behind, as the Castrol machine continues to try and get closer and closer to Petty as they head up the rise. But as they do, well, this top 4 starting to saunter off a little bit as Marone in P5 has got the rest of the field behind. And speaking of the field battling behind, well, it's Sean McArdle there, battling on the inside all the way into Druids Bend and being passed there by Matty Wild. The Sesame Street machine absolutely roaring on, and McArdle now under pressure from Foster as Foster looking up the inside. Hard on the brakes, he'll go shortly, and Andy Jones sitting in there right now trying to use the force, I think, to make sure the door stays open. But McArdle in the end around the outside using all the racing room available, and we can see Jones there taking a little bit of rallycross line in order to look around the outside here of Foster. Had to back off a quarter exit with that battle, McArdle, and as they head down in towards turn number 1 this time around, where it's going to be Jones and Foster who go side by side, and well, in the end Jones will get ahead as they roar their way up towards turn number 2. Coming down in towards the right hander here and through, it's going to be close all the way as Foster right now taps the grass, and the car car. Let's go on the rear axle. Catches it just in time, but Foster in the end can't get it stopped and decides to take to the grass in order to avoid tapping one of his rivals. Meanwhile, that's Alistair Pollock who's gone round. Well, goodness me, it's not a good moment there for the 21 drivers. He tries to get it back together using the Knickerbrook chicane in order to return to the racing, albeit I think there he's going to be getting a black flag, which he'll have to clear from what is effectively a shortcut, albeit he hasn't really gained any time. He's lost plenty, and whilst all this is playing out, we look back up to P5 and Ethan Marone under pressure as we ride on board and look back from the rear of the number 12. Now chasing him is Carl McGuirk, and McGuirk thinking about another move, once again trying to tuck to the inside, can't quite find it, but Marone under pressure there, goes a little bit deep out the corner. Here comes McGuirk, he's going to get the better run. It's a long run up the hill, the toe is going to be helpful, and McGuirk giving him a little bit of bump on the rear to say to Marone, look, I don't want the place off you, I want you to pull us up towards Simnor, and coming in towards the next couple of quarters. I wonder whether McGuirk will regret that, given the speed he had. We'll have to wait and see as they roar the way on down in towards turn number 3. We're coming on down. Marone goes a little bit deep there off the apex, so that's going to give him the inside central line to hold off McGuirk, so sometimes it's actually okay to go a bit wide, but not that wide, and he taps McGuirk, and McGuirk into the barrier, and Carl McGuirk's progress is suddenly brought to a halt and sent all the way down the order as he lets the car roll back into the grass. And whilst it's going to be a frustrating moment there as the field picks its way on past a stricken 97. Meanwhile, Mikey Pollard, who got caught up in that open lap opening corner instant, well, right now the turn 1 and troubled drivers up into P9. Championship leader, remember, there's no points up for grabs in this race. This is all about position for race number 2 where the points are available. And right now, Pollard is starting to pick up some more places, but I think he's on the mindset here. He needs to make some progress because he can't just rely on finishing towards the back, although it would guarantee him starting up towards the very front of the grid. I think he does want to pick up some places here and make sure that he's not at risk of potentially a turn 1 incident that put him all the way to the back at the start of race number 2, was they inch their way closer towards the halfway point of this race. And we say hello to Mark Kent in the YouTube chat, commenting on the save that was made early on by Andy Jones coming through turn 3 into 4. A very impressive save, no doubt about it. And in fact, I do believe that was James Foster, not Andy Jones. The Star Wars machine in its own had a separate incident, and we also had a Kitty machine go wide, but we'll very shortly get a replay of what happened to Carl McGuirk. We did see him in that instant, and also to Alistair Pollock on lap number 5. And in fact, here's the replay as to what happened to Alistair Pollock in the Hello Kitty machine coming down in towards turn number 3. Looked all okay, onto the brakes into turn 4. We saw James Foster running wide there, and Pollock just taking too much apex curve up onto 2 wheels, and the car went round there with the momentum that was placed on the wheels that still had what was that touching point to the tarmac. And we did also have the separate incident a lap later at the same corner for Carl McGuirk, albeit this was aided, I do believe, and was number 97 driver came down into the braking zone. You're going to see there the number 12 goes wide, comes back on and taps McGuirk, and in the end McGuirk to the barrier, and more the number 12 there of Ethan Marone and Carl McGuirk's 97 definitely coming into a bit of intimate contact and not the way they wanted it to. A little bit rough there as they made their way through that lap, but as we come back to the live racing, and Pollard still trying to find his way past Sean McArdle as they head on towards turn number 2. And well, here comes Pollard looking to the inside. Will he be able to guarantee this? No, he won't. As meanwhile, the Dunkin' Donuts machine there on what is Falconer trying to force the issue through turn 3. They go side by side, and well, in the end, as they come through, Pollard has to back off. And I think Patrick Falconer simply saying to him, look, we're going to go into this corner, I'm taking it off you. If we don't, we're going to make contact, and both our races are going to go backwards. And Patrick Falconer not holding anything back. And I can tell you one thing, when he races TCR machines, he can be a very bold driver when he needs to be, and that's not a bad thing, to be fair. And Patrick Falconer definitely getting his touring car experience out there now as he heads in towards turns number 8 and onwards towards 9. But as he makes his way under the bridge and onwards towards Lodge Corner, meanwhile we look back up towards the leader, and Richard Yip still running away at this time, albeit Gavin Petty is now starting to go faster by 2 tenths on that previous lap. So it could be the situation whereby our race leader now starting to be reeled into a degree, and this may be a little bit of a pain that he's going to have to try and contend with as he gets deeper into this race distance, as Petty will be trying to put that pressure on. Further back, Andy Jones in P6 battling here for P6 with Matty Wild taking the place off of Wild, in fact, as they made their way out of turn 1 in towards 2 and 3, and Jones there being brave to go around the outside as Marone very sideways coming out of turn number 4. Turn 4 does seem to be a bit of a change for Ethan Marone in the last couple of laps, but Jones as well with too much apex curve at turn number 4. You'll see Wild looks up the inside, can't quite find it this time, but Matty Wild absolutely throwing everything at this as we ride on board and look down over the front of the number 82, and the Sesame Street Blues are charging their way up towards turn number 8 as he comes up through the right-hander, but you can see that Jones gets the better run into the first apex, and that enables him to open up a further 10th as Marone takes a long trip towards the barrier, manages to avoid making contact with the barrier, but I can imagine Marone right now in a car whose tyres are absolutely covered in dirt and grass. He's not going to have much grip available, and I think those tyres might be a little bit too hot given the number of instances where he's gone very sideways coming out of turn number 4. But over the start finish line they go in towards turn number 1 once again, and coming down to the brakes, and Jones immediately putting a lot of pressure on us, but it's still in the popcorn seat view as they come out to turn 1, and Jones forcing Marone to be under so much pressure as they come down 2 in towards 3, roaring into that left-hander. You can see the brake lights going on very briefly there from all of our drives just to settle the car, just to get the weight to go over the front. Jones gets it very wrong, and as a result loses all the momentum, and Wild comes back at him through the right hand of Knickerbrook corner, and Matty Wild just playing it smart and waiting for the opportune moment in order to take his what was retribution on the P6 battle, and doing exactly that, coming through Knickerbrook with Jones now under pressure to try and respond once again. Meanwhile, just behind them, Patrick Falconer, well, he's already made one big move in the Dunkin' Donuts machine. He's going to try and make another shortly on McArdle as they head up towards turn number 9 underneath the access bridge to get in and out of the circuit if you are a spectator, and also if you're one of the teams who is taking part on the day. And Patrick Falconer here up the inside, McArdle there sees it coming too wide, and in contact between the two, and Falconer turns to the barrier, and well, I think no love lost there between the two drivers as McArdle carries on. We see a flash of lights there from James Foster. I don't know if that's SOS. Alternatively, there was a message saying good on you, McArdle, for sticking it in to win it. But as they head on towards the next lap, well, right now Foster making his way up towards turn number 2, and the reason why I'm giggling here in the commentary booth is because I can see the logo on the side of the car of Foster, and well, I'm not quite sure what crouch recovery is referring to, unless it's referring to Peter Crouch, the footballer. But as he comes out of turn number 4, I can tell you it's one of the more unique liveries I've seen in the car in recent years of racing. As he comes up towards turn 5, the number 84 driver right now just looking to pick up a couple more places as he tries to get even deeper inside that top 10. He's currently P10, and after what was a very difficult opening couple of laps, well, he's absolutely now got his head down and trying to push on. But as he comes on around behind Paul Crawford, the man who started in P10 and currently in the top 4 of the championship standings, and one of the drivers who's eligible to potentially take the championship crown at the end of the racing today. He finds himself behind Alistair Pollock, but keep in mind that Crawford right now will be thinking to himself that if he finishes this low, it will start him towards the very front. And what is the final race today? Looks up the inside, however, on Pollock in towards Lodge corner, and well, classic move there on the brakes, and Paul Crawford takes P13 in the number 25 and makes his way a little bit further up the running order as he heads in towards turn number 1. Meanwhile, looking from towards the back of the field all the way back towards the front, the field now coming together. And have we had another virtual safety car, or is that an error from Petty? I think Petty's had an error, because Richard Simnor has come roaring on through and changed places, and they wouldn't be doing that if there was the virtual safety car in effect. So therefore a call hasn't been made, and Petty has made a mistake somewhere along the run coming through Knickerbrook corner, and that has enabled Simnor to close up and very quickly make the move. And here comes Ash Hill as well, as the trees obscure our vision for a brief moment, but not for long, and Hill feels the inside late on the brakes there, but Petty covers him off just about as they head towards the next lap. And we ride on board here with the number 10 as it comes over the rise of Deer Leap and in towards Old Hall, coming down towards turn number 1. Onto the brakes they'll go now. Will Hill look to the inside? No, he won't. He'll brake a bit earlier. He'll get a nice early apex here, and the idea being he's going to try and get all the momentum in towards Denton's and Cascades. But the problem is he comes in towards Denton's now, it's really one line only unless you're fully alongside going through turn 2. So therefore Hill backs off, trying to put the pressure on Petty to make an unforced error. On the brakes they go through the right hander. You'll notice both drivers there letting the car run deep, not looking to take that apex curve this time around, and they're cognizant of the fact that if they take too much apex curve at turn number 4 at Foster's corner, they're going to be putting the car up into 2 wheels, and that runs a very high risk of putting the car sideways, if not round onto the grass. And we've seen that multiple times in this race so far as they head in towards Druids Bend, but no change here. And Hill right now absolutely chomping at the bit, taking a lot of apex there at the first part of Druids, not what he wants to do. And you can see, look at how that gap opens up. He loses all the momentum, and by the end of the run down towards Lodge corner, that's going to cost him a further 10 plus the 10 he lost through Druids. So 2 tenths lost there from Hill, but he'll try and recover those as quickly as he lost them. Meanwhile, looking to Mikey Pollard and the rainbow liveried machine, the psychedelic car in the number 73. Looking around the outside of Marone in towards turn number 9. Try to go around the outside there at Lodge Corner. And as he does so, the gatehouse in the back. And we're coming out of turn number 9 in towards 10. And Pollard makes that move count. Wild watching on the distance. And Marone now finds himself caught in a rock at a hard place as he comes in towards turn number 1. 4 minutes left on the clock. All the drivers absolutely pushed each other to the limit. And Pollard continues to pick up places here and not flinching whatsoever. And well, that's Wager Championship leader going into today, given the fact he really has been the man to beat all season long. And we're coming through turn number 4. Everyone's seemingly just avoiding hitting the apex curve too high and keeping their heads down and roaring their way in towards what will be turn number 8 in due course. But as they head all the way up the rise here, we're not long left in this race, and we might now start to see what is those more isolated battles between drivers and everyone just keeping their cool at this point all the way to checker flag. Albeit I say that, I think right now everyone will be egging each other on, given the fact that all of these drivers are friends as much as they are rivals on circuit, and therefore there will be a bit of banter. And I wouldn't be surprised if the elbows out does escalate towards the end of the race, if not going into race number 2. But right now Mikey Pollard's got his head down and knows exactly what he needs to do in order to set himself up for a good finish in this race, and then all importantly make his way into the final race of the season. But meanwhile, just behind, we look back to Matthew Wild. We've ridden on board with him before, and we're riding on board once again, looking over the top of the car, and he chases after Marone. Both drivers there pushing each other on as much as they can, albeit they will pick up an off track there for running wide of the white lines, but I don't think they'll mind that. I think they'll have plenty of instant points in reserve as well. They're really taking a lot of apex curve at turn number 3, and it doesn't aid him too much in it. If anything, it unsettles the car, it straightens the run through turn 3, but it also means that rear end becomes much more loose, and we'll come through Nickelbrook corner, doesn't quite catch up as much as he would like, still half a second behind Marone. I mean, it feels as though he's got the faster pace compared to his rival in front, but the problem is catching is one thing, as late great Murray Walker once said, passing is another, and Oulton Park is no exception, given the fact the only major overtaking opportunities you do have here, unless you get an error out of your rival, is at the final major corner, which we're coming up to being what is Lodge Corner, also into turn number 4 if you can get alongside of Foster's, and arguably, if you will, coming into Druids Bend, but you've got to be quite forceful with the move. Meanwhile, looking back to the very front of the field, with what is the penultimate lap now underway, most likely, Richard Yip coming down through turn number 3. He's got Richard Simnor very close. It's the battle of the two Richards as they make the way out of Foster's Bend. You see Petty falling back more and more now, 1.5 seconds over this lead battle. So it is going to be the Santa Coca-Cola machine versus the Hatsune Miku machine, and as they roar their way up the rise, well, there won't be a new Christmas single coming out of the Vocaloid machine, I can tell you that right now, unless it takes victory. And I think we're going to be hearing Simnor shouting about it all the way to race number 2. But as they head in towards turn number 8, yep, right under pressure, no doubt about it. And meanwhile, Simnor takes a little bit too much speed there, but that shows you how hard he's trying to make an error appear out of number 65 in front as they come down onto the brakes here, roaring their way on through. And what you can see there, the Good Smile Racing logo on the front of that Toyota that's in pursuit, and that's the original team that run the Hatsune Miku livery in Suzuka in 2020. And as they roar their way in towards turn number 1, final lap is underway. It's Yip versus Simnor with Petty in the distance and closing with the battling here. And we're going to stay with this lead battle for the rest of this race. Although I'm hearing in my ear there's been an incident involving Mikey Pollard, and we'll try and get a look back at that if we can. But I think we're going to be staying with the battling here all the way to the very end. Although I think we can get a quick replay as to what's happened to Pollard. And this was just on the lap we concluded, coming through Druids Bend, and Pollard goes wide, running wide, and then turned around by Marone and into the barrier. Marone follows him there and ends up coming across the circuit. But it returns to your live racing, ladies and gentlemen, because we are only now one is a further lap from the finish line in race number 1 of the day, and Yip is holding off Simnor all the way through turn 8 up towards turn number 9 they go. And with Pollard in the pit lane, that means he'll be starting towards the front row of the final race of the season. But here comes Simnor looking up the inside, can't quite find it, and Yip absolutely parks on apex, and he drags the car out the corner. It's looking close, but which of the two Richards is going to take it? It's going to be Richard Yip who takes the checker flag, and victory in race 1 ahead of Richard Simnor P2, Gavin Petty P3, Ash Hill in a quiet P4 and a bit of a lonely one at that. And then it'll be Andy Jones who comes on through to take P5 ahead of Matty Wild, who will just miss out on the top 5 but take a valiant P6. And then we'll have Sean McCardle P7 ahead of James Foster P8, Mark Collar Collicott will shortly come through to take P9 in the Frosties machine, and then it will be, to complete the running order for the top 10 at least, Patrick Falconer there, who just finishes ahead of Alistair Pollock by less than 1.5 tenths. Paul Crawford, P12, and then we will have a sizable gap to the wounded cars of firstly Ethan Marone, who, goodness me, now that is a Toyota that definitely needs some body work and also some suspension work. In fact, I think it's missing its front right tyre. In fact, no, it's still there, the front right tyre. It's just at a very severe angle, and therefore he's going to crawl it across the line. Body parts are most likely going across the road, but he does make it across the line, does Marone, to P13 ahead of Carl McGurk, and then it will be Mikey Pollard, who had that major shunt into the barrier here coming out of Druids on the penultimate lap, and that was between himself and Marone, and the number 73 driver will make his way on down here. He'll take it nice and easy and know that if he finishes last in this race, he starts on pole for race 2, and that's the race where all the points are available to you. And Pollard, your championship leader, only needs what will be a grand total of 7 points in order to be able to take the crown as he makes his way up the hill to line. Has he got enough momentum here? I think he has, as he just tries to creep to the line. The number 73 will make it in the end, but definitely a car that has been bruised, battered and everything between. In fact, parking up there, and well, I wonder whether Pollard's just trying to get across the line here, or whether he's deciding to play it up to the spectators a little bit, as that's the race complete, ladies and gentlemen. And well, now we've got a slight warm-up period before we go to race number 2, and what that means is we can take you through those race results from our first race of the day. In what was a fast and furious race 1 here at the Oulton Park Foster Circuit in the DCW Racing Community League for 2024, round number 5, well, it was Richard Yip who took victory ahead of Richard Simnor, and only 2 tenths between the two Richards at the end, but Yip ahead of Simnor at the close, and Gavin Petty finishing a further 2.5 tenths behind to round off your top 3. Ash Hill, P4 there, and a brilliant drive, albeit not quite on the podium as he would have liked, but still he'll be pleased to have made his way to P4 at the close, with Andy Jones P5, then Matty Wild P6, 3 seconds off of Jones at the checkered flag, but still ahead by 3 seconds of his own ahead of Sean McArdle, with then a further second to James Foster P8, Mark Collicott P9, and Patrick Falconer finishing P10. Alistair Pollock P11 at best of the rest, ahead of Paul Crawford after what was a tumultuous run through turn 4 early on in the race, and then Alistair Pollock and Paul Crawford wrapping up that run for the 6th row of the grid, albeit it'll be inverted there to become what will be P4 and P5 in race number 2. Carl McGrath P13, Ethan Marone P14, and Mikey Pollard your last placed finisher from race number 1 at P15, a lap down as classified, but he will of course be taking pole position in the final race of the season. Well, we've still got one more race to come, ladies and gentlemen, and well, what a race that was, no doubt about it, as we do say hello to Richard Simnor, enjoyed himself there in the YouTube chat. And absolutely having a fantastic race. I think a little bit disappointed perhaps not quite able to make the move for victory on the final lap, albeit he definitely did think about it, looking to dive to the inside into Lodge Corner, but there wasn't quite enough space, and Yip was always going to simply stop the car there on the apex if he needed to, but as our drivers all crawled along at this point, well, Patrick Falcon, I think, practicing his race starts, and these Toyotas quite challenging to launch from a stationary start, in the fact that you really do need to get everything to engage, and remember, it's a 6-speed sequential gearbox, so there is the opportunity to use the clutch to change gears, and well, clutch management can be key for launching these cars off the line, and if you get it absolutely right, you have a lightning start compared to some of your rivals, and that will be where all the places are made lost early on. But of course, just to remind you, we've just had race number 1, and race 1 is more of a warm-up race, if you will, albeit there's plenty of rivalries and there's bragging rights in race 1, but it sets the grid for race number 2 as a full reverse grid of the results from race 1. So the winner of race 1 will start in last place on our grid for race number 2, and the last place finisher of race 1 will start on pole for the purposes of race number 2, and well, Mikey Pollard will be the beneficiary of that. Your championship leader will go into race number 2 9. He starts on pole, and if he can get a good start and run away, well, bar any virtual safety car intervention, you may find that number 73 driver might just be able to run off into the distance, but if he doesn't have a good start, could we see him be bustled down the order? Well, that'll be the thing he won't be hoping for, albeit I think he'll enjoy battling his way back up the order as well, which he's already shown he can do in race number 1. But of course, race number 2 is the race where you can score all the points. Race number 1, there's no point up for grabs. But what is up for grabs, whilst we do have 2 minutes, is if you are thirsty or you're looking to get a bit of popcorn or a equivalent snack, because it is going to be a cinematic finale to this season of racing, we definitely recommend you take the opportunity to do so, as I'm going to take a quick sip of water myself. Now, many of these drivers, as they make the way on around here in this final warm-up session, they'll be accustomed to racing a whole variety of machines, Mark Collicott being one of many, and some of you may know him as one of the well-endowed GT3 champions in the UK Sim Racing GT3 League. And I do believe Mark Collicott was, unless my memory is mistaken, the Pro-Am champion back from what was, and I think I'm going to get this right, Season 10, unless I'm mistaken, where Collicott took the Pro-Am crown. An absolutely brilliant drive to do so there, and a highly decorated driver. Patrick Falconer, as we mentioned earlier, a very well-known touring car racing driver in terms of TCR class racer. You'll find him in the likes of the NXTCC, and absolutely delivering some phenomenal drives in where's the Pro-Am class in that series in particular, and then moved into the Pro class, and will absolutely delivering up there as well in the number. I believe he carries the 96 forward in every series he races in as much as possible. Richard Simnor as well, a GT3 driver who we've seen many a time, and a very well-established driver with regards to GT3 Racing League. So a lot of these drivers do compete in a whole variety of machines, and will therefore, with all that experience in mind, they'll be looking to draw upon that experience in this second race, albeit one of the slower cars available in the iRacing Simulator service, the GR86. But when it's a slower car, for many drivers, in fact, they're the more interesting cars, because they're the ones you have to work harder in order to get every mile per hour out of. But as he sideswipes Matty Wild there, and I think there might be a wing mirror missing later on today, well, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for race number 2 and our season finale race. So the drivers make their way to the grid for the final time this season. This is how they'll line up. Patrick Falconer takes reverse grid pole position, and in fact, as Mikey Pollard finished a lap down and not classified, it's Falconer who's on pole ahead of Mark Collicott. We then do have James Foster and Sean McArdle on the second row. Matty Wild and Andy Jones on row 3 ahead of Ash Hill and Gavin Petty. And in fact, we're going to stop that there, ladies and gentlemen, because all the drivers in position and the lights are going on very quickly. So without further ado, it's 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go for the final race of the season. And Mikey Pollard having to do it all from the back of the field. But Patrick Falconer gets the start he wanted at the very front. And Mark Collicott tucks in behind as the whole field immediately now starts to concertina in the midst of what is turn number 1. And Richard Yip battling side by side with James Foster. Car around, that's Gavin Petty, who goes very sideways and collects Carl McGurk. And Carl McGurk has no luck with regards to incidents he's been involved in. As meanwhile, Mikey Pollard carries on. I think he's had to nurse the car out of the carnage. As we see the field making its way on down through Foster's corner, Richard Yip holding one behind, and James Foster is turned sideways, and it's absolute pandemonium coming through turn number 4 as half the field is taken away. And in fact, there Andy Jones deciding to give a little bump to Richard Simnor on the way out, as Jones there in a very heavily damaged car. And I wouldn't be surprised if anybody has got a virtual safety car call remaining, it will be utilised at that point. And that's going to completely shuffle the order as Patrick Falconer still leads after that brilliant start. Mark Collicott there with him P2. They are where they started. And then Sean McArdle P3 has gained 1 place, but Ash Hill has gained 3 from a P7 starting position to P4. But as they come on through Lodge Bend, we can see all this field now started to space out into more isolated battles. And I believe as they make the way on through Deer Lee, the field has had its pace neutralised. It's Patrick Falconer who is just slowly moving along. We have got the virtual safety car in effect. Another one has been called, and I believe that might have been the virtual safety car being called, if not by Matty Wild, then it will have been by one of our other drivers, potentially James Foster, although I think there are a couple others out there as well who've yet to use their VSC call for this season, and well, they need to use it tonight, as otherwise they'll never be able to use it again for the 2024 championship campaign. As we do have Petty, Pollock, Crawford, McGurk and also Marone all in the pits. Simnor coming in as well, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see Jones in there, and well, that's practically half the field that was involved in that open lap shunt as all the drivers make the way on through here at reduced speed. But let's take a look back at what exactly happened at the race start there with that major incident coming on through turn 1 and also at turn number 4. So as we look back to the race start, and we're going to ride on board here with Paul Crawford, and I think in terms of where he was positioned, he avoided a lot of the carnage. He had a brilliant start there, did Crawford, making his way on 1 position already, and we can see the field already starting to fan out as he made his way to the outside here into turn number 1. Looking around the outside of Matty Wild to give himself a little bit of comfort space, and you'll see Petty shortly turned, I think there, if not of his own volition, perhaps a small tap from what was the front of Matty Wild's car. Crawford taking some damage on the right hand side in a bit of a rub there while his rolls down through turn 3, still too wide at this point, and Paul Crawford absolutely going gun-ho in, as that was Andy Jones who then came on through it, and this is where Jones is about to be collected, and Crawford manages to avoid all of it, demonstrating at the same time what is a bit of a Colin McRae rallycross moment, albeit then gets it wrong, coming through Nickelbrook corner, and after evading all the chaos and carnage, Paul Crawford's race being brought to a 180-degree stop right there at the end of the run. But meanwhile, we then look to what was Petty, and I believe we're going to be looking here from above in terms of the blimp camera. And the Goodyear blimp just making its way down towards what was the end of the first half of the lap. So you'll see there Petty on the inside at the distant camera view, and we'll get a good run. But Carl McGuirk, in fact, having one of the stronger runs of them all. And as they made the way through, and Richard Yip as well having a fantastic run. And then Petty being tapped on the rear by Wilder at a distance from that camera shot. And McGuirk then having the spin off the back of Petty. And well, later on, as they made the way down, Richard Simnell here on the back of James Foster. As Yip on the inside there, open up the door, and Simnell decides to follow the fellow Richard through. But Foster tries to go in on the exit, and well, in the end, Simnell making his way into the path of Foster. Monroe also being caught, Marone I should say, being caught up there, and was absolute chaotic carnage. And we'll return to your live pictures now, ladies and gentlemen, as the drivers continue to make the way on around, and the field's still under virtual safety car conditions. We are waiting for our P15 car of Ethan Marone to catch up, as the majority of the field now onto the main pack. And to take you through that running order with 16 minutes on the clock to go, and the clock is still ticking away, is Patrick Falconer, who leads, having started on pole, ahead of Mark Collicutt, who started on the front row with him. Sean McCardle P3 ahead of Ash Hill, with Richard Yep P5 ahead of Matty Wild, James Foster P7, Mikey Pollard P8, Garen Petty P9, Paul Crawford P10, Carl McGuirk P11. He's gained in all of this, crazily enough, and given the fact he did end up going the wrong way at turn 1 on lap 1, but was in the opening incident rather than the latter incident on the open lap, and that one being the one that was more costly, so he's gained out of it. Richard Simnell down in P12, Alistair Pollard P13, Andy Jones P14, the biggest loser of them all in the open lap in terms of places, losing 8 places from a starting position of P6, and Ethan Marone P15, having started P14. And it all went in the wrong direction very quickly indeed. Well, ladies and gentlemen, with the field almost back together, and in fact, we're just waiting for Marone to make his way onto the back of the field, coming in towards Lodge Corner. And as the field leaves Lodge, Patrick Falconer will be the one who gets to dictate the pace, and we'll bring the dashboard up because he will be allowed to go anytime he wants to now. But when will Falconer go? That's the big question. And as he makes his way on past the tree line, here he goes, ladies and gentlemen. He's back up to speed, and we are green flag racing once again here at Oulton Park for 15 minutes of racing still remaining. And Patrick Falconer right now getting his head down and trying to push on, as we can see many a car going onto 2 wheels there as they make their way through the opening corner. Oh, goodness me, that's Paul Crawford into the barrier coming out of turn number 1. Now, was he sent on his way, or was that of his own volition? I can't tell you at the moment, but I can tell you his race has come to an abrupt halt once again as Ash Hill with contact there to Richard Yip, and Yip turned around and the whole field makes its way and scatters its way around Mikey Pollard there, takes a long way round, and in doing so loses places. Carl McGuirk through all of this leapfrogs his way back up into P7 and is trying to battle his way past Gavin Petty, who's also gained plenty of places as a result of all that. Meanwhile, Ash Hill is being swarmed into Druids Bend after a poor run coming out Nickelbrook corner, and well, Sean McCardle looking to try and go around the outside, couldn't quite make it happen, and in turn Ash Hill holds on to P3 for now. But McCardle, you would imagine in the number 9 still feels like he can make some magic happen here if he plays his cards right. Meanwhile, further back, James Foster battling still with Mikey Pollard and Andy Jones. And Jones with a poor run, and I think we've got another virtual safety car, ladies and gents. But indeed, as quickly as we go away from one, we're now onto another. So there's still virtual safety cars available to our drivers. We'll come into the pits there. That's Matty Wild coming in. Now, has Wild had some damage? In fact, I'd look at that front bumper, and yes, it is very heavily skewed. So therefore, Wild has been involved in some contact. Well, we're going to have 2 drivers in the pit lane for a period of time. So that's definitely going to neutralise the race to a degree. But what exactly happened there to what was, excuse me, Paul Crawford at the start of that restart? We're going to take a look back and find out. Well, they made the way into turn number 1, and Crawford here took a lot of apex curb and in the end unsettled the car. And if there was a tap from Carl McGuirk behind, it was a tap that wasn't meant. I can tell you that because Crawford was already on his way towards the grass, and I think McGuirk, if he did tap him, would have just assisted him very slightly, if at all. Meanwhile, then what happened down at turn number 4 on the open lap, we look back to Richard Yip here as we in fact jump on board with him and battling here with the car, the Castrol machine of Hill, and on the inside, and the 65 turned around there and collected Matty Wild, and that explains why Wild is into the pits as well. And well, that is the story between them. We now return to your pictures, and as we do, the field's still coming back together after what has been quite some time under the VSC. And Patrick Falcon here, is he up to speed? I think Falcon is up to speed, in fact, as Crawford is leaving the pit lane. So I think we are back up to race speed, unless I'm mistaken. Although I say that, are we going to be seeing any overtakes here from our drivers? Because they are running at an increased pace at the moment. And I think we are green flag racing, ladies and gentlemen. We come back at the right time. So Falcon has decided to go on the exit of Druids, and he can go anytime. He doesn't have to wait to the start-finish line. And as they come through turn at number 1, well, plenty more laps still to unfold in this race, no doubt about it. But Mark Collicott being left behind, as meanwhile McArdle versus Simnor. Simnor goes around the outside into Cascades. A lovely move there from Simnor, and McArdle being left to fall to P5. He's got Petty and McGuirk behind. Meanwhile, a little bit further back, Ethan Marone now looking to go on the attack in towards Knickerbrook corner, as I believe Collicott and Simnor are having a bit of a scrap there at Knickerbrook already, but Marone chasing after Pollard. But heading up the rise, well, in towards Woods Tower corner. We look back up into that top 3 scrap, and Collicott here holding on for now, but you can see the whole field started to bulge out behind him, including McGuirk, who's looking around the outside. That's very bold from the number 97 driver to try and look for a move on the exit of Druids. But to be fair, if anybody can do it, I can tell you that McGuirk can. He can pull off some magical moves when he goes all in, and well, couldn't quite find it there in towards Lodge Bend, but definitely trying to tease it out as Hill, slightly off camera there, has found his way into P2 ahead of Simnor and also Collicott. So right now, Ash Hill roaring onwards as Falconer sets the fastest lap of the race following this restart. So Patrick Falconer not wasting any time, but Mikey Pollard immediately responding down in what is P10 and saying, no, I can go even faster, and sets a new fastest lap race. We've got Paul Crawford into the pit lane, so I think Crawford's car has been in a bit more damage than perhaps originally expected, and therefore his race has really come to a standstill. And in fact, I think they've had to retire the car of Crawford, which is so very unfortunate. But as I try to make the way through turn at number 4, with James Foster heading in towards the right-hander, and as he does so, well, it's now going to be all about here. He's trying to put some pressure on to Jones as soon as possible, as Marone here being pressured by Pollard. Pollard looking up the inside and towards Tower, can't quite find it, and in towards the right-hander return. Number 8 they go, and it will be line astern for now as they roar off the double apex right-hander. Anyway, Yip behind, giving a little bit of a tap there to the back of Pollard and looking for a move here. It's towards the breakage over Lodge corner, and Yip, who really has been in the drama in this race, wants to try and unpack some of that drama now, but can't quite find it this time around, albeit he's going to find a wayward car there of Alistair Pollock going around, and well, we'll come back to that shortly, as meanwhile it's all arms out here as it's 3 wide coming down to turn 1, and that is Carl McGuirk picking his way through. McArdle on the inside, Collicott on the outside. That is going to be a one-way ticket to the grass for Collicott if he wants to avoid contact, and he does in the end. But Carl McGuirk suddenly finds his way all the way into P4. Now, how on earth has Carl McGuirk done that is the big question, because he's just siphoned his way past 4 cars, well, in fact 3 cars in the space of a run to turn 1. Well, here's the replay, ladies and gentlemen, as there's even more carnage further behind. Well, here's the replay of the run down towards what was turn number 9 on the previous lap. And as he came down to the braking zone, McGuirk looking around the outside of McArdle, so fighting all the way here, and this fighting upset McArdle's car. You can see Collicott makes an unenforced error of his own, and this enabled McGuirk to look around the outside of the pair of them in the free-wide run across the timeline, and McGuirk in the end just keeping his head down, decides to go all in on the brakes and gets it done. A brave move there for Carl McGuirk to make that happen, and well, one of the moves of the day, no doubt about it, as we are back under virtual safety car conditions once again. And well, the lead that Patrick Falconer carved out there for a brief moment has all been brought to a halt. And well, unfortunately, we're hearing there from Jilted Game in the YouTube chat that they're out of the race. And I do believe that might be Paul Crawford there confirming that he's had to retire the car. And if so, I'm sorry to hear that, Paul, because it was looking quite good, particularly in race number 1, but it's all come undone in race number 2. We've got James Foster and Alistair Pollock in the pit lane, and well, their cars are currently undergoing fast repairs. And well, meanwhile, Patrick Falconer just bringing the field on through. We've still got 8 minutes on the clock, and as time continues to trickle away, well, right now, if things were to finish as they currently stand, I believe, unless I'm mistaken, I'm just double checking all the points with regards to how all the drivers are going into tonight and the points they could gain. I believe Ash Hill would in fact just miss out on becoming your champion. Pollard would do enough at this point, finishing where he is. Hill really needs to take victory here, and he needs Pollard to finish outside the top 10, so therefore it's not enough at this time as the field make the way down. And we can see there Carl McGuirk and Mark Collicott, they're 2 wide coming through Cascades. and I think Collicott might just carried a bit too much speed down the hill. But are we going racing yet? I don't think so. No, we're not, as Yip has left the pit lane. Meanwhile, with regards to Foster, he's still being serviced, and Pollock's still being serviced out there. So there's a lot of work going on in that pit lane with regards to a couple of cars, and Yip has left the pit lane. So therefore, we've still got 12 cars out on circuit. Also, we've now got Pollock leaving the pit lane, so he's going to be back racing very shortly. And then we're just waiting for Foster. But will we finish behind the safety car? Sure, well, behind safety car conditions, surely not. And Patrick Falconer here will be looking at the clock and thinking, how long is this going to be for? Because right now this is quite advantageous to Falconer. If he gets one good restart here, I mean, he's had a great one already. That was a phenomenal restart we saw moments ago, where he managed to carve out a 1.5 second gap by just simply launching the car at Druids Bend when nobody expected him to. We'd imagine if he could do that again, and we've only got 2 or 3 laps remaining, he might create himself the gap that enables him to breathe all the way to the finish. Even if Ash Hill is potentially the faster driver, Hill won't have enough time to catch up to him. So therefore now this is going to be a bit of a dice roll here, and well, if you're Patrick Falconer, you've got to put your bets in and hope that you can get a restart that is a restart to be dreamed of. Conversely, Hill is going to need to be absolutely alert there in the Castrol liveried car, for the simple reason, if he's not alert, he could fall victim to places being taken off of him. He could lose out on an opportunity to take victory, and if he takes victory and Pollard finishes in P9, it may be enough for him to take that championship crown. Albeit I'm not going to make the prediction, ladies and gentlemen. It will be confirmed after the racing. I've made enough errors in the past of trying to confirm it, but one thing that is not in error is the fact that they make the way out the final quarter. We are racing once again, and Falconer is not able to catch Hill sleeping. If anything, Hill catches Falconer, and as they head in towards turn 1, Ash Hill moves into the lead of the race, but he goes very deep on cold tyres, and as he tries to get them warmed back up, Mikey Pollard battling side by side there in the rear of the picture with Marone. And well, it is going to be Falconer who gets back there as Ash Hill threw everything at it and overcooked the attack into turn 1 slightly. But onto the brakes they all go, and further behind Pollard's confirmed there. You can see us making his way past Marone, and Marone now down to P10 once again after he tried to get the jump on Pollard into turn 1 on that restart with 5 minutes remaining, and that is going to be another 5 laps after this one, if my maths is correct. But as the drivers roar and romp their way in towards Druids Bend, well, right now everybody absolutely chased after Falcon as we look back from the rear of the race leader, and well, that is a long line of Toyota GR86s, and right now these Cup cars absolutely delivering phenomenal racing in the very capable hands of our drivers. But as the field fans out behind, and Hill looks for that opportunity under braking, but he can't quite find it under the retardation. Meanwhile, Gavin Petty has been able to battle side by side here versus Collicott, coming through large into Deer Leap, and well, as he tries to leap his way into P4, what's it going to be? Because 1 minute is P4, 1 minute is P5. Collicott on the inside, Petty on the outside, and Collicott here has to back out as Carl McGuire being a little bit impatient. I think he's trying to say to Collicott, can you politely get a move on? I've got more pace. But right now on the inside line into turn 1, it's not the ideal place you want to be. And going down the hill in towards turn number 3, everyone absolutely knows the town, and Pollard right now on the back of all of this, rubbing up against the rear. Oh, goodness me, as that is a spear off into the distance, and I believe that is Marone who's taken a long one-way trip onto the grass into the international loop, albeit I'm not quite sure how that started, but I can tell you that Mark Collicott was involved in the incident, and we'll get a replay of that shortly, as meanwhile we come back to McGurk versus Jones as they head over the rise and in towards Druids. Where's McGurk around the outside and roaring the way on around. All the field right now still running together here as they head in towards turn number 9. And meanwhile behind there we've got Mikey Pollard, and Pollard is recovering the car as I think the field is now under safety car once again here. So all the safety car calls being summoned at the 11th hour. This is absolute pandemonium, ladies and gentlemen, and Mikey Pollard's race has suddenly completely cut off the wheel tracks, and I'm not quite sure what exactly happened there to Mikey Pollard, but we get a quick replay to explain. Well, this was coming into Druids Bend, and was there a tap on the rear? Yes, there was, and that was Yip who gave him a tap, and in the end the 65 driver escorted Pollard onto the grass, and Pollard's race suddenly coming to an abrupt halt, and well, anything could go, to be fair, in this one, up to a point as Yip crawling along there and parking up, but the number 73 driver, well, I think he'll be a bit frustrated at that one, as we can see the majority of the field together here, and a lot of drivers are in the pit lane with 3 minutes left. Repair work, and Falconer is being told to essentially absolutely breathe bring the field to a crawl. And I think the idea is to enable those who are in the pits to come out right on the back of this pack and get the racing going once again. And well, in doing so, it means that we're going to have an absolutely scintillating sprint showdown with only what I suspect will be about 2 minutes, perhaps even 1.5 minutes left on the clock. And well, Alistair Pollock at the front of the field. How he's got to the front of the field is anybody's guess, but the Hello Kitty machine finds itself in the lead of this race through all the chaos. And what I believe Pollock might have gained the place essentially from what was the pit lane. And well, in fact, I can confirm to you, he came out the pit lane ahead of this pack, so the way that Falconer has backed them up has meant that Alistair Pollock has picked up the lead of this race in what is a completely unexpected turn of events, and was tries to make the way out of Foster's corner. Now, whether Falconer will be allowed to retake the lead or whether Pollock will just be given it, given the fact it's worked out tactically, that is a big guess there. But as the field makes its way out of Knickerbrook corner, I believe we might be racing again. Yes, we are, and we're back up to speed then with 2 minutes to go, and Alistair Pollock now is your unexpected race leader. But good on him for going all in for it. And as we see Patrick Feld having to go defensive once again, that's 3 wide into Drury's Bend. You don't go 3 wide there, let alone 2. And Matty Wild in the end scoops it around the outside ahead of Collicott and McArdle and takes P6. And goodness me, I think he's going to need a drink after that one, because that is brave and then some. But Matty Wild moves into P6. McArdle and Collicott fighting behind him. McArdle dives inside of Collicott, and we'll have 2 more laps to go here. Again, we've got 1 minute 10 on the clock as they cross the line, and well, the average lap time is 1 minute and 6 seconds, so we will squeeze in 2 more before the close as we go on to lap number 13. Man, as we can see here, Alistair Pollock right now under huge pressure as they roar the way on around. And in all this, Mikey Pollard in P10 with Hill down in P4. It would be Pollard who will be taking that championship crown. So Hill right now has got place to pick up, and my goodness, there goes Patrick Falconer. Falconer's onto the grass, and he completely loses it. The car snaps away from him, and what's more, that's Hill. Hill's into the barrier. They're coming out to turn 4. We've also got on the grass, I believe, unless I'm mistaken, that is Pollock. So Hill's race comes to an abrupt halt, and it is heartbreak for Hill. And now all Pollard needs to do is get the car to the finish, and he will be crowned the champion. And as far as I'm aware, provisionally we will confirm that. But meanwhile, Richard Simnell now leads this race with 1 more lap to go. If they can get to it, there's 20 seconds left on the clock. The race may be called on what is this lap, given how close it is going to be. And speaking of the closeness, well, there's McArdle looking at the inside of Collicott but can't quite find it, and Yip is holding on to P3 and what's been a roller coaster ride of a race. And here comes Simnell to the line. He will go on to 1 more lap. The white flag waves, so we get a 14th and final lap here at Oulton Park in this race of the day. And Mikey Pollard right now is still fighting, even though he doesn't need to anymore. If he's not aware of it, I think he has done enough. And Pollard looking around the outside here into Dentons versus McArdle. In the end, decides not to go for it and plays it safe as Falconer's tucked in behind him. And what a turn of events it has been in the last 3 laps of this race, in the fact that we have seen leaders rise and fall as quickly as the laps have been clocked in. But meanwhile, there's Pollard, and on the inside is Falconer trying to go in. We've missed the front bumper there, I believe, for Collicott, who's in P4. Now the driver's head up the rise. Well, Pollard here staying on the inside, not wanting to risk it, knowing that Hill's in the pit lane. He doesn't need to do anything silly at this point. As they head to Drury's Bend, and it's going to be a Gurg on the inside, and Pollard lets the car run to the outside as much as he dares to do so. But meanwhile, looking to the front of the field, and it's this man right now, Richard Simnell, who is going to come on through the last 2 corners in what has been an absolutely topsy-turvy race, and he is going to take the final points win of the season as the checker flag waves, and Richard Simnell is your winner ahead of Matty Wild P2, Richard Yep P3, and then it's going to be Mark Collicott P4 ahead of Patrick Falconer P5, Mikey Pollard P6, and I believe that makes him your provisional champion for the 2024 DCW Racing Community League here at Oulton Park. Sean McArdle P7, Gavin Petty P8, Carl McGuire P9, and then Alistair Pollock P10 there, as it is a bit of a graveyard of Toyotas at this point. Ethan Marone comes on through, goodness me, and he's not too pleased there with Simnell's victory. And well, P11, Ash Hill P12 with the late retirement to the pit lane, and then Andy Jones, James Foster and Paul Crawford. Well, it has been an absolute chaotic race, to say the least, ladies and gentlemen. But for Ash Hill, you've got to feel for him in what looked to be a sudden chance to snatch the crown away from And Pollard, it wasn't to be in the end, and that brings all the racing to a close here at the Oulton Park circuit in our season finale. But let's bring you those race results, subject to any potential stewards' inquiries, albeit I don't think there are any stewards' inquiries for this league. But what we can see in our season finale race, and that being our 10th race of 10, Richard Simnor, your winner by 8 tenths over Matty Wild P2. Richard, yep, P3, and then it was Mark Collicott who just missed out on the podium, but he'll be happy with the fact that he's finished best of the rest P4 ahead of Patrick Falconer P5. Mikey Pollard P6, which makes him your provisional champion for 2024. Ahead of Sean McCardle P7, Gavin Petty P8, where all went in one direction then the other. I don't quite think he knows where he's finished in this one until he will see the results. Ethan Marone at P9 and Carl McGuirk completed your top 10. Just outside the top 10, Alistair Poll at P11 ahead of Ash Hill, who in the end classified as a lap down at P12, and Andy Jones, who was also 3 laps down there, and we had the times of James Foster and Paul Crawford P14, P15. Goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what a race to wrap up what has been a fantastic year at DCW Racing for 2024. And, well, the DCW Racing team community absolutely loving the racing from start to finish and showing you what you can do at Oulton Park in the Toyota GR86 86 Cup racing machine, and also showing what happens when you turn elbows out up to the max. But with that, that brings all of our racing here today for a close, but that doesn't quite bring our broadcast to a close, because shortly we are going to be looking to conduct some post-round interviews with our drivers, should they have the time available. So we're going to step away for approximately what will be 10 minutes or so, but we'll be back after the break in order to bring you those post-round interviews. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. We will see you very shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. And today we've got 3 drivers for you. We're going to be starting off by talking with Patrick Falconer, who rapidly found his way from towards the back of the field from qualifying all the way up through to a P5 in race number 2. We'll then be hearing from Alistair Pollock, who found himself finishing just outside the top 10 for race number 1, but managed to sneak his way into the top 10 in race number 2. And then we'll be hearing from the man who found his way onto the podium twice today, Richard Simnor, who importantly culminating that victory in race 2 and taking up those 25 points. But without further ado, joining me in the interview room is none other than Patrick, or Paddy Falconer as he's known to friends at DCW Racing. Patrick, what an absolutely fantastic set of races today, up and down the grid for DCW Racing, no doubt about it. But how did you find it out there?
Carnage, absolute carnage. Yeah, mate. Honestly, if you heard our chat room, we was all belly laughing. It was just hilarious. The whole idea of this league thing was we do so many leagues and so many professional leagues and so many times, and we spend so much time practicing, and we just like lost ourselves having fun. And this was the reason why we just wanted to let your hair down on a Sunday evening before the week starts and just have an absolute blast, and that was so much fun. It must have looked absolutely carnage everywhere, and we was all belly laughing. I'm still crying now, still trying to recover from some of the laughing that we were doing. But yeah, no, it's good to have you on board, Paul. It really was.
Oh, fantastic. I'm glad to hear that you and all the guys at DCW Racing have had such a fun time. And I mean, it looked like it out there. And what a way also to wrap up what has been a fun community league, in the fact that Oulton Park, the Foster circuit, I mean, it's so narrow, you can barely go too wide at the best of times. And in a Toyota as well, where you can rub up against one another and literally can go door to door, corner to corner.
Yeah, it's actually really good car to pick. It really, really was. It's just incredible. I mean, we had some Formula Fords. We've had some right weird combinations, and one of the stipulations that you wasn't allowed to practice. They gave me grace because I've had about 3 weeks out the rig because I've had a bit of a brain issue. So getting recovering. So this was my first time at the rig since it all happened. So they gave me a few laps grace, but that was it. But then, yeah, no, it was just a good night. And yeah, if anybody watches and want to come along, please do. We're just having a fun. We're just putting fun back into racing before we do all the serious leagues and stuff.
Oh, 100%. That's what it's all about, particularly as we get closer and closer to Christmas. Fun should always be on the schedule. And well, speaking of the fun you had out there, I mean, qualifying was never really going to, matter too much, given the closeness of the field. On the top of that, the presence of a safety car at any point. But where did you find yourself in orbit in race number 1? I mean, it was a P10 finish at the end, but all the way through the race, at certain points looking for a top 5, then barreling down the order, then a safety car comes along. I mean, it must have been a bit of a roller coaster.
Oh, it is. It was quite fun, especially on the first lap. I've been Hello Kitty'd out of the way, and then it was just a case of just trying to recover. And then I remembered I had a safety car, so I was like, "Oh yeah, I've got one." I called it out, and that gave me a bit of back into the race. And the rest is just history. Let the other guys just just seed chaos. And that was the best fun part of it, yeah, I don't. I think we've forgotten to set some boundaries and rules and stuff, but yeah, it was never about the qualifying. It was just about the racing and stuff, and in even the second race, we've always decided the first race you don't get any points. It's pointless. And the second race is where you get the points, and it's a reverse grid. So yeah, it was like I said, it's an upside down kind of way of doing things, but it made everything extremely fun because we're all, as you can tell, very competitive. Doesn't matter where we are on the iRating scale, we all want to win, and and in some cases do whatever means necessary to get that win.
Oh, 100%. Although I have to also imagine that there might have been a little bit of a moment where you thought, you know what, if the rules were a little bit tamer in race number 2, it would have been the perfect start, because by the end of turn 1, lap 1 in race 2, you're already halfway down the road.
Yeah, we realised that we forgot that it's all manual starting, and nobody could realise the clutch bite point. And I was doing some practicing, and I found a good clutch point. And it was like 56% and 55% between one of the two. and for some reason it just hooked up and left, and I left some, revs in, and I just managed to peel away. And I think everybody else is bogged down, so that was quite handy. But yeah, no, that was good fun. And then as soon as the first safety car, your heart sinks, and you're like, oh no, I got to do it again. And the second time I did really well, and then the third time I think everyone was wise to my restart skills, and then it didn't matter from there on in.
But still, at the same time, it's great to see you try and be a little bit mischievous with those restart skills where you can, even if everyone cottoned on towards the end. And what an ending as well. I mean, you were hustled down the pack a little bit to P5 at the close, particularly after the major shunt that we saw from many a driver at turn 4. But I mean, it's always going to be like that when it is literally a 2-lap sprint to the finish.
Well, that's it, and especially when you got what we call Salty Sim now behind us, and he decided to help me along down the hill, I think his words were. And yeah, no, it was just a big laugh. We just all laughed about it, I think a lot of times you'd get really quite angry with being punted off, and we don't encourage it by all means. It wasn't encouraged. But sometimes we just let all the racing happen like that, and then when you get into the serious stuff, it just makes times like these where you laugh with your mates just so much easier to deal with. So yeah, I gotta hand it to Paul Crawford for sorting it out and paying for all the millions of iRacing credits that he can spend on, and just everybody turning up. It was just so much fun, and it was really, really good.
Oh, it was without a doubt. And just before I do let you go, and last question to yourself. Of course, 2024 is coming to a close, but what are your plans for 2025? Are there any big plans sim racing-wise in the works, or are you just going to see what comes with the DCW Racing team?
I'm going to see how it goes, really. I'm still quite heavily involved in the NXTCC stuff. I took a season out just to recover, mostly from the issue I have. But hopefully it will be just get back into some sim racing. There's a couple of WSR leagues coming up, and there's a few bits and pieces that we're going to stick our fingers in. And of course, the first major one is Daytona in January. That's usually when we do our, most of the team 24-hour race, so we're looking forward to that. I think we'll start preparing for that, really. We'll make that and then go from there onwards.
Sounds like a plan. Well, we look forward to hearing how you and the team get on at Daytona in the months to come. But until then, Patrick, it's been a blast chatting to you, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your evening and a Merry Christmas ahead.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you, Paul, and I'll look forward to hearing you on Tuesday with the NXTCC guys. That sounds. I can't wait for that, and I'll tune in then.
Oh, thank you. Wishing you all the best.
Take care, mate.
So hearing it there from Patrick Falconer, absolutely enjoying every moment of the racing today, from lights out to checker flag, and realising much like what I think many a driver here will tell you, in the fact that this is all about having a good laugh, some competitive racing, also doing the things that you wouldn't perhaps normally do in a sim racing series or league, but you can get away with in a all friends community league. And well, a few bumps and shoves there, some of them perhaps below the belt compared to others that were expected, but Patrick Falconer enjoyed it, and also trying to get away with some rather rapid fire restarts in race 2, where he made it work twice, but on the third time it didn't quite work out the way he wanted it to. But we're interested to see with regards to his plans going into 2025, of course, and taking a bit of a breathing space with regards to his touring car racing, but looking to come back into that in the future, and also looking to be on the grid for the 24 Hours of Daytona on iRacing in January. Well, everything's looking up for the number 96 driver of Patrick Falconer. But now coming on to our second interview, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to be hearing from Alistair Pollock very shortly, and hearing what has been a rather fun day of racing for Alistair, albeit the results perhaps not showing what he's been able to achieve compared to what we're going to be talking to him about, but still in the fact that it's all about the fun out there, and as he does join me in the interview room, we'll get to hear all about it. In fact, without further ado, here he is as we say hello in the interview room to Alistair Pollock. Good evening to you, Alistair. And well, what a fun evening everyone's had tonight, yourself included. And whilst you may have finished outside of, if not at the bottom end of the top 10 in the races, I mean, it's all about the laugh. And we saw plenty of moments from yourself, which I think could make a bit of a highlight reel.
Yeah, it was good fun. I'd say a fun highlight reel is exactly what we got out of tonight. I think that's what this whole series has been, to be honest. It's been more of a team building exercise than anything. overly serious, and I think we did quite well at that.
Oh, without a doubt. And, well, plenty of team building, like you say. And, of course, you're running in, well, you were running in the Hello Kitty machine. And I think there's become a term now, which is that you've ended up Hello Kittying a few people out the way over the course of tonight. I mean, what made you choose to run that livery of all the liveries you could have run the Toyota?
I mean, I think that's actually been the most conservative livery that I've run all throughout this championship or this series. I think my favourite one was just putting comments from people from the Discord all over the car. I can't remember what race that was now, but that was good fun. I think we've all had a little bit of fun with the liveries. Richard expressing his weebiness throughout the season's been quite good, as well as the other kind of questionable liveries we've seen.
Oh, did a fantastic medley of liveries on the cars, and like you say, some of them perhaps a bit more questionable than others, and some perhaps we can't repeat their content live on air, albeit we can perhaps describe them. But coming to describing your racing today, I mean, whilst the results don't matter too much, qualifying a P11, but going into race one, I mean, it started strong and then very quickly end up seeing you seesaw your way up and down the order to finish where you started. I mean, race number one, you probably didn't know whether you were going forwards or backwards by the end of it.
No, it's the GR86 isn't a car that I've actually spent any real time with at all. I might have played around with it briefly in rookies, but I was always more aimed towards the MX-5. So it's not a car I've driven much at all, and with no practice before we came into tonight. It was quite interesting. It's essentially a boat and it's good fun to drive, but it's not attuned to my natural kind of habits of driving, so it was good fun. But yeah, no, there was some very squiggly moments, and yeah, apologies to Paddy for my little turn one incident. My radar showed that I was completely clear, and after having watched back the kind of replay on that, I can see it definitely wasn't so.
Oh, well, there's still one of those ones whereby you have to look back and see what exactly happened, as we also just see a look back there of your brief contact with one of the two Richards, the number 65 of Yip in race number 2. And coming on to race number 2, I mean, race 2 had multiple virtual safety cars. It had plenty of carnage from corner to corner, and moments whereby I think you're wondering whether you would be leading one moment or the next moment at the back of the field and having to carve your way through. Completely unpredictable.
It was good fun. I think race 2 was the best. I think if it wasn't for the damage and the steering wheel at 45 degrees, I think I was in with a good chance of potentially holding on to that cheeky first place coming out of the pit lane. But no, it wasn't to be. But I had a good bit of fun with it.
Oh, 100%. Like you said, that cheeky sneaking into lead from the pit lane. I think that made my jaw drop as well with the commentary because it was very well executed, but still couldn't quite hold on in the end with the steering damage. But coming on to future aspirations, of course, 2024 is coming to a close and it's been a great year at DCW Racing. But what's on the cards for yourself in 2025?
Yeah, like you say, 2024's come to a close. It's probably been my best year in sim racing. So I've just done the Porsche Sprint Challenge 2024 with Motorsport UK and Porsche. So I'm off to Silverstone in February for a day out with Porsche there. So I've got some almost real life stuff on the cards, as well as I'm going into World GT Championship with the rest of the boys here at DCW as of late January, and then we also have the 24-hour of Daytona coming up. So I think we're planning on getting more involved with some of the endurance races, obviously Daytona in January. Nürburgring's going to be a fun one, but otherwise I'm not sure what I'll be doing later in the year with sim racing, but World GT Championship's the next on the cards.
Well, firstly, congratulations on your achievements in the Porsche GB Challenge, and well, bringing home that award to go to Silverstone and actually have a day with Porsche and that ultimate experience. I mean, that's going to be the envy of many of your colleagues here at DCW Racing, I'm sure, and also good luck with all the upcoming achievements that you're chasing after going into the 2025 year. I think it's going to be a great year for yourself and the team, Alistair, no doubt about it. But with that, it's been an absolute blast having you join me in the interview room, and I'd like to say to you, thank you for joining me, and have a very Merry Christmas ahead as well.
Of course, you too, and enjoy your 2025. I'm sure we'll be sat together here chatting at some point in the future.
Oh, 100%. I'll hold you to it.
Cheers.
So hearing there from Alistair Pollock, a very happy Alistair, I can tell you that, in the fact that with regards to the racing today, we're more of a team building exercise, and I think that's a very eloquent way of describing what it was all about today. And well, the multitude of liveries, and deciding to go with the Hello Kitty livery car, which was perhaps the more conservative of the liveries he's run over the course of the season. Well, I'd love to have seen what other liveries he'd run, no doubt about that, including the one that had all the comments on the car, but perhaps we might have to censor that car out or be running around completely pixelated. But liveries aside, with regards to racing today, race number 1 being a race where it was all about back and forth moments and a few major shunts throughout, whereas race number 2, well, it was a similar picture, and we've seen some of that in the replay footage in the background, but also that sneaky jump to the lead of the pack as a result of a virtual safety car needing to come into the pit. Well, sometimes you've got to be tactical in order to make things work, and that's what it's all going to be about when he does look to the endurance racing in 2025, but also talking there about some of his achievements over 2024, and perhaps most notably with regards to the Porsche GB Challenge, and being able to bring home that award and head to Silverstone later on this month for that experience with Porsche, the manufacturer. And well, definitely a big congratulations there to Alistair, and I'm sure much more successes to come in the year ahead, after hopefully a relaxing Christmas for our number 21 driver. But then last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, we come to our final interview of the day, and we're going to be hearing from the man who really has led the way today when it comes to results, and it will be none other than Richard Simnor, who gets ready to join me in the interview room, and we'll get to hear a bit about the livery, given the fact he does, as he was described there by some of his teammates, be a bit of a weeb, or someone who is very much into Japanese and particularly anime culture, as the term is usually used to describe, as I stumble over my words, and also to talk a little bit about those performances at the front of the field. As he does join me in the interview room, good evening to you, Richard. And well, firstly, what can I say other than a brilliant set of results, and perhaps also the most important result, the victory in race number 2? You must be grinning from ear to ear after tonight.
I'm sure I'm grinning. I'm not sure everybody else is. No, it's great fun. Great fun.
Oh, goodness me. Well, it looks like you had a lot of fun out there based on our cameras, and I can only imagine how much fun you were having there inside the car as well. Although, before we come on to the car and you're driving, do I have to ask, one of your colleagues only moments ago mentioned that you are a little bit of an anime fan, and that's a Hatsune Miku livery on the car. Would you mind telling us what inspired you to run it?
If you saw the liveries for the other rounds, I'm just going for the most weeb livery of them all. But somebody had made the Good Smile livery for this car, so yeah, had to run it. It's the best livery in the world.
Well, to be fair, I think I'm allowed to say this. Now, as a bit of an anime fan and perhaps a racing weeb myself, I'll raise a glass to that one, because a very nice livery on the car, no doubt about it, although I can't technically say it's my favourite. But what I can say is it definitely caught my eye, as did your performances over today, and it looked as though, whilst qualifying was a P6, there's perhaps a bit more out there, but only 2 laps available. You've never quite got the time to get the perfect lap together.
Yeah, my fastest lap was going to be my second lap, and then I two-wheeled it at that right-hander, so didn't exactly set the second sector on fire. But yeah, I don't know really. Just nice sort of qualifying position. I knew Andy would absolutely drop it from where he started, so that would always be an easy overtake. I didn't realise he'd drop it that much, but yeah. Other than that, yeah, just I like being in the middle of the pack when it's these sorts of races. It gives you a bit more to battle with, and whilst I appreciate, likes to flag victories and whatnot, it's yeah, it's always good fun going side by side and getting the practice in for when it really counts.
I see, and well, when it really counted, it was in race number 2, and after a P2 in race 1, which did see one virtual safety car, race number 2 saw virtual safety cars as quickly as the laps were ticking up. I mean, you probably couldn't know from one moment to the next as to what was happening and what place you were in the running order.
Chaos. But yeah, no, it's fine. I mean, this is the style of this series, is that we wanted to give everybody a free chance to call the safety car whenever they drop off the back, and it being the last race of the season, everybody's getting a little bit excited, piling into each other or going 3 wide. It was always going to be crazy, but we're all having a good giggle about it, so it's all good fun.
Oh, indeed. And well, it does sound as though you all had fun out there. And speaking of race number 3, when things did settle down and we did have 2 laps of absolutely fast and furious racing, I mean, you got absolutely stuck in there. There were a few bumps, a few elbows as well, a few of, could we describe them as push-to-passes, and then some. And it looked as though, well, you definitely had a lot of momentum coming down into Foster's corner, where everybody seemed to have a habit of two-wheeling it.
What's the phrase that the kids use? Yeet? Yeet it around that corner. You can carry a lot more speed around there, but then you got to get it slowed down. And obviously that one where I had a tussle with Paddy, I pretty much got it sideways. But I made the corner, so that's the important thing. So.
Well, that's true. And at the end of the day, it's all about having fun out there. That's what matters most. And a great end to your season. And with the season coming to a close, and also 2024 coming to a close, when you look back on 2024 and your achievements with the team and in sim racing in general, are there any that stand out that you'll hold high?
Yeah, I mean, so we compete in various championships, from WSR championships like WGTC, and we have like Next Gen and all this kind of stuff. I mean, the really big highlight is in the Porsche Esports Championship, where Mikey Pearce and Alistair Pollock got 2nd and 3rd in the AM category, and that actually gives them a chance to go and race the Cayman around Silverstone in real life. So it's a real big one. Really great to see our name up there on the board, and it's such a fantastic achievement for the 2 of them. From my own point of view, I battle along in WGTC against 10k drivers, and I do very mediocre in Pro-Am. And this year I picked the Corvette. It wasn't the car of choice for anybody. I think I was one of maybe 3 drivers in a field of 60 to pick the Corvette. But the absolute highlight for me was a race at Suzuka. I started last because I had a quali ban, and made it up to 12th, which absolutely shocked me. I think I came 2nd in Pro-Am in that race as well. It was quite a big effort for a 2-hour race. It was an endurance round. Just for me, it was 2 hours of sort of perfect driving that got me right up there. Pulled off some absolute worldy overtakes. It was just one of those things where it all comes good, and that's what I do sim racing for, is just having those moments where you just really hook it up and you come away feeling absolutely great. But the community that we built at DCW is just absolutely fantastic. We got some really great guys, all different abilities. We all do different varying jobs in our lives, and all come home wanting to do sim racing for various different reasons. And that's why we put this community race together, just so that we could all come together on a Sunday at a sort of nice relaxing time when all the families are in bed and all this kind of stuff, just to do our thing and have some fun. And then we're gonna continue it on next year. We've already got plans for season 2. They're going to be even more wacky than they were in season 1 if we do get it all together. But no giving away any spoilers. But it will be pretty random. Let's put it that way. That's sort of the plan. The idea is just, as always has been with this league, is just get a load of cars that we just don't drive normally. And just throw them around a track with no practice and see how we get on. And that's kind of how it's all comes together. And obviously we all come together at various bits of the track as well because of it, but it's all part of the fun. It's all part of the enjoyment, and yeah, that's why we do it.
Well, that's fantastic to hear. And talking about your achievements there, I mean, that sounds incredible in itself in the World Series with the Corvette GT3, that result at what was Suzuka. And sometimes it's those results which mean the world to you. There's no doubt about it. We can just dig out a result when perhaps you're not expecting it. Alternatively, it's one of those ones where you're going up against the grain, and like you mentioned, the Corvette not being the car on the grid to really go with, but making the most out of it. But on the whole, reflection sounds like you've had a fantastic year, and I look forward to hearing more about what's to come in 2025 for yourself, the team, and also the future season of this Community League series. I mean, it's been an absolute blast tonight to see you all race and enjoyed it, and well, I can only imagine what craziness will come the second time round. But with that in mind, Richard, I'm going to leave you there and leave you to get back to the team and have a chat with them and also have a further laugh. But it's been a pleasure having you in the interview room with me. And the last thing I'd like to say is, if I don't catch you before Christmas, have a fantastic Christmas and we'll see you in 2025.
Yeah, you too, mate. And hopefully we'll see you again soon. Thank you for doing tonight.
It's been my pleasure, Richard. And likewise, thank you. Have a great rest of your evening.
Cheers.
So hearing there from our final interview of the evening, ladies and gentlemen, number 42 driver of Richard Simnor and his achievements, not just today, but also over the course of the year, and really reflecting what have been a lot of positives and what more is to come for himself and his colleagues at the DCW Racing team, and where it shows just how tight a unit the team are in the fact that they've all got different levels of background and experience where it comes to real life racing, sim racing, everything in between, and even their professions and crafts outside of racing, and bringing it all together. And that's what it's all about. And tonight's exercise really being about blowing off steam, having a good laugh, and really celebrating the success as a whole. And I'm sure plenty more is to come in 2025, especially so from Richard and the wider team together. But what a happy way to wrap up our interviews with the words there from Mr. Simnor. So that concludes our interviews, ladies and gentlemen. You've heard from the number 96 driver, Patrick Falconer, first and foremost, and then from the 21 of Alistair Pollock, and then just last but not least, just then from the number 42 of Richard Simnor. Congratulations to all three of them on their performances today and for all having an absolutely brilliant amount of fun out there, and we look forward to seeing plenty more from them going into 2025. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, and a big thank you to them for their interviews, it is now time for us to wrap up. So thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now thinking that you'd like to know more about DCW Racing in terms of what they do sim racing wise, the team, and how you could potentially perhaps one day become a part of the team, well, for all that and more, we do recommend you first check out their official Twitter, and that is at twitter.com or x.com/DCW_racing, where you can find out all the latest announcements regarding the performances of the team and what their plans are going into future months. But if you don't want to go to their Twitter, perhaps you're not a social media person, perhaps you're more of a visual person, perhaps you're looking for something on YouTube, well, they do have an official YouTube channel, the DCW Racing YouTube channel, and that is there at youtube.com/DCW Racing 8773. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, of course, that brings to a close all of our racing from today, and all we can say is thank you very much for tuning in, and make sure to stay tuned for plenty more racing action from DCW Racing in 2025. While the up-and-coming sim racing teams, no doubt about it, and if their achievements in 2024 are anything to go by, the sky is the limit going into next year. And as part of next year, of course, we've got definitely another DCW Racing Community League on the cards, as indicated there by Richard Simnor, hinting that the craziness will only be turned up to 11 as we head into the next one. But until then, thank you for tuning in. We've been DCW Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as we head into Christmas, have a Merry Christmas, ladies and gentlemen, and remember to stay on track. Good night.